I went
What
to
do you
go
mean
fix
fix
it.
the
I'm like,
camera?
that's what I look like. Wow, so much better.
That's
Oh
my
no.
favorite sentence. That's what I look like.
Oh, that's embarrassing, dude. Oh man, I bet I have some stories like that too, of having a problem that you don't realize until 3 months later. I didn't realize I had a cable that didn't fully support 120 FPS, and I played at 60 FPS for God knows how long. Jesus. And when I changed it, I was like,
It's like a whole new world at that point.
yeah. It's really funny because the only way I could test it, like I stole my roommate, he was on vacation. I stole my roommate's cable and I tried it. I was like, this is it. No wonder. And then I'm like, okay, I need to get a new one before he comes back.
Yeah, he
I
doesn't,
did
and he
it
doesn't
with,
need to
like,
know.
2 new memory sticks. I needed more RAM in my computer, and I installed them, and like nothing got better. But for 2 months, I'm like, this is it. Then I went to go check. I didn't freaking click it in all the way, dude. For 2 months,
my
I
God,
spent
dude.
$180 on like memory cards, and like it just wasn't working for 2 months.
I
And
love
I
that
clicked
so
it. I'm
much.
like, oh wow, smooth.
It's
Everything's
supposed
so much
to snap him.
nicer.
All right. Well, hold on. My Discord is having a moment. There we go. Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you guys for being here. It's been 2 weeks. No, we didn't take another hiatus. I know. You were scared.
I told you before that it's not going to be every week, so I think we're okay.
See, you say that. But everybody, welcome back to I'm All Ears, which is the #1 rated Dead by Daylight podcast, where Dro, myself, and sometimes a guest will cup our ear to the fog and listen to what you, the community, are saying regarding updates, balancing, sometimes character lore, but popular quests and much more. Be sure you guys head on over to Spotify, give us a rating over there. Apple's a little bit quirkier, but we still would appreciate it. But today we have a special guest. We have the Otzdarva hanging out with us, talking about any number of things DBD, but not all of it. Hopefully balanced, not all of it. Hopefully so serious. I
was expecting the bulk of our discussion to be Fang Cosmetics.
Oh,
I would prefer clown
the Fang
cosmetics.
economy we live in right now.
Yeah,
I got some notes on clown cosmetics too. Sure, let's do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say normally we have people introduce themselves. I don't. We might as well, right? I don't want to treat you different. You're not, you know.
I'm happy. Yeah. My name is Otz. I'm from Spain. I once watched one of my favorite streamers play DVD, and I thought it was fun to watch. And I thought, hey, if I like watching it, maybe someone else will watch it too. And I started making content for it. And as you know, as anyone that switches from one content type to another, obviously initially the reaction's always going to be a bit rough. But I really stuck with it because I really liked it. And over the years, I've just worked on a lot of guides, tried to put the resources that I wish I had when I started playing and so on. And nowadays, I live and breathe DBD, and almost every moment of my life, I'm working towards some kind of goal or some kind of guide to, to have fun, to inspire others, to make the game more accessible to new players. And that's it.
I love that.
Awesome. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of full circle. Before we had you even in the call, I mean, Dro and I remember Puppers was one of the first people I ever saw stream it. And then once I came back around to it, like, I bounced off, came back. I found your content because, at the time, way back then, the game was harder to get into. So it was kind of full circle to have you here talking about you watching someone else. And that's
that was a cool intro. I agree. Because the same thing for me, it was like Otzdarva, you, ohtofu, Puppers, and Monto at the time.
Looks like everyone has an entryway into the community through someone.
And
it's quite lovely.
Years before I decided to even get the game. It's like one of those games that I love to watch. And I was like, I don't know why I didn't get it. And then one day I did, and like here I am, living and breathing it as well. And it's a great game, my opinion.
It's all right. It's all right. 10,000 hours.
Moments, but
my refund it.
Negative rep. I was just gonna say I reached out initially because I had commented on something that you had said that was intended to be. The intent was to. I feel like I'm approaching a topic from a different angle, but I figured that I was like, what a better way, especially with the way the internet works now,
Yeah.
to actually talk about this stuff than to
Mhm.
have like a Twitter thread
Yeah.
that gets so
So
out of hand.
yeah, so long story short, for all of you that are not 24/7 on Twitter, congratulations, by the way,
Yeah, you're
best
doing
decision.
it.
But long story short, for those of you that are not, lately in the community, there's been a spark of debate, mostly centered about one or two perks on both sides and being unfair, unfun, whatever. And typically, the way Twitter works, people are a bit emotional. Sometimes people they'll type and say the first thing that comes to mind. They
Mhm.
won't consider the full picture. They won't give you the benefit of the doubt. They won't give the discussion the nuance it has. They'll just say, "Well, you say that because you're bad, mad, and stupid." And it has the, it obviously spreads like flames. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, you're totally right. A discussion like this is awesome to set the record straight and give it the nuance, right? That it needs to make sure that whatever you say, whatever you think, people cannot just deconstrue it and think something else, like misunderstand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, yeah. So I guess just diving in, rolling into topics. The big thing that I think I wanted to touch on, and I know like HiDro and I have been doing this for long enough. We've kind of seen different eras of this game for at least the past 2 years.
Right.
But recently tunneling has come into like the zeitgeist as it's eruption and gen kicking, and it's tunneling and
Mm-hmm.
by proxy camping and slugging and these things
Mhm.
as facets of the game. So what are your thoughts, and Dro, yours as well, with regards to tunneling and why it seems to be more prevalent? Because this is kind of what sparked our conversation on this. I have my thoughts. I'll save it to the end, but
Sure. Um, I personally think after especially like the last maybe couple of weeks, I have kind of noticed more of tunneling and camping going on. I don't think it's as extreme as people make it out to be on Twitter. I play this game for like 40 hours a week, so I play this game I think a lot more than most people do. And from my point of view, it does happen. Sure, like maybe more frequent than usual, but I don't think it's like that bad. I think people are just more complaining about it now, just because of a lot of things piling up. The current meta with the gen kicking, the
Yeah.
eruption, call it brine and stuff. Also with the killer buffs that happen, so gens already take a little bit longer to happen. So before, I think when it was happening, people were able to get objectives done quicker. So it wasn't something they would complain as much because they could get it knocked down quickly and maybe save the person that got tunneled or help them out. But now, because of the current meta, you're kind of forced to not help them. So the person who is being tunneled just ends up getting caught out immediately. You know what I mean? So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just like a combination of a lot of things that happen quickly
Yeah.
that is causing people to think, oh, this is happening so much more now. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
happening the same, but it's
Yeah.
harder to like deal with.
You made a great observation when you pointed out that it's the effect of many small things.
Hmm.
When people take an issue, and this we could straight up call it an issue that is so complex as this, and they're like, "Oh, it's just this one perk. It's just
Hmm.
this one thing. It's just this one change. If we just did this one thing." Like, no,
No.
no, no. Like,
right.
think it through for 1 second, and you're almost immediately going to realize that one thing alone wouldn't change anything, and
Hmm.
one change alone wouldn't have brought this about. One thing that's also worth mentioning that some people never seem to realize that most people that play the game get better. As they get better, they play against other people that also get better. And as that happens, guess what? You're going to see more high tier killers, more high tier or effective strategies, and more tunneling by proxy. So
Hmm.
if you ask any player in DBD, from my experience, if you ask anyone, all of them will tell you, yes, tunneling has gotten worse. Yes, survivors have gotten more sweaty. Yes, things has gotten worse. It's not. They've not. This is very anecdotal. Maybe there's some truth to it, but it's mostly anecdotal. Everyone feels like everyone else is getting sweatier because people, on average, get better at the game and go against other people that, guess what, also get better or take shortcuts to get better.
Yep.
So I think the one thing that like that it would be really difficult for me to say, I think I feel I get tunneled more. Like it's so hard to like nail it down, right? Some people like Question Turkey have made like small sample experiments to see what happens. And obviously the numbers are pathetic. It's like tunneling in 2/3 of the game. What do you expect, right? Really, really bad. But what maybe a little bit more objective, what I think I wanted to focus down on my post and my discussion is not so much if tunneling happens more or if it's why it's now been as you pointed out, why is tunneling now more recognized as the strategy? Obviously, it could also come down to the fact that as people get better and better over the years and the game keeps not changing so much, people realize that, hey, maybe when 3 survivors are left and one of them is dead, maybe they're not so good at doing stuff. Like, obviously, people are going to figure out that very simple truth, right? But you pointed out too, now if you have, slower gens and so on, it's a lot of little things. And my post that sparked a lot of debate was not so much a justification, because I don't find it super fun that you have to tunnel a person out at 5 gens, or you feel like you have to. I don't find that fun. I don't want to encourage that. But what I think is undeniable is that this strategy, not only has it gotten better, comparatively speaking, it has gotten much better. And I made like a short list of different playstyles that are easy to explain and easy to understand. And we can talk about just over the last year how most of them have gone down in effectiveness, and how tunneling not only has it not gone down, it's gone up, and you now have more tools and you have less risk. And we can get into it slowly, but there's quite a bit to unpack.
Oh, I would love to get into that for sure.
Yeah, I generally it's been interesting because when people started bringing this up, I always err on the side of like I try to be, because I used to be somebody that jumped to conclusions immediately. I try really hard to be cautious to really say that something has gone one way or another. And for me, so I sat and I did, over the course of a few days, a small sample size of matches, and I found that tunneling happened in 3 out of 25 games. But
when you played as the killer.
Yeah. I was very nice that morning. And it was interesting. But there are so many also other factors that like, well, maybe MMRs differ, right? Because like, I always approach this as, and it's very coincidental, you put up your video talking about this sort of rise in tunneling and maybe why it's happening. And coincidentally, an hour before you put a video up, I put a video up, and I approached it from a slightly different perspective, but like, they're not opposing of, I think that right when you're new to the game, like the logic of somebody's already injured, so I should just do that.
It's so much harder to mess up camping compared to other things.
Right.
Tunneling compared to other things. It's so much harder to mess that up. At least right now, there are so many other strategies that require you to do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. Like, look at the people that play the Condemned Sadako playstyle, which is a super mega niche thing that you can only do on one character. If one person puts the TV tape on at the wrong time, that's it.
Whole team.
All your early game for nothing. All your playstyle for nothing. Meanwhile, survivors have no way to undo hook stages. They have no way to magically heal if you're constantly on their butt. You're right. Like, it's very accessible, and that's something that's super worth pointing out as well. Tunneling is easy, and it's intuitive for the killer to do, and it's difficult for the team to know what is the answer to doing it. There's no one answer. Against some killers, go take hits. With some medkits, go take hits. Against a nurse, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Yeah.
What are you going to do? I have chased nurses with flashlights to try to burn them. I have flashlight nurses. I've done some. It doesn't work. Like every match where tunneling is one simple strategy that for the most part doesn't change too much, and yet the counterplay to it is a massive encyclopedia of know what to do against this killer, know what to do here, how many resources do you have, can you take a hit, is the person going to have adrenaline, and it's no wonder it's the easy way out for players at any level, obviously.
And I think that's the hardest part. If you are not perpetually online, right? If you're not watching streamers and you're like, I'm going to play Dead by Daylight, and you play your first 5 killer games, you're going to hook, and maybe you go somewhere and you go, I can't find anyone, but that guy's injured. And I know that, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I'm supposed to get, like, that's the easiest path to victory. And it's only when you're in this environment and you've played enough that people tell you you're not supposed to, that then you start to, so
Yeah.
it is like the logical choice of like, go after the guy that's going to help me win the game faster, because I play a PvP game to sometimes win like that. So I think my perspective was very much like, I don't think the game does anything to discourage it, even as like a base mechanic or anything like that. And I think a lot of new players just do it because it makes sense.
Yeah.
And then they get used to it, and maybe they hit a skill ceiling where now they're going against survivors that they chase that survivor for 4 gens. They try to tunnel them for 4 gens, and then they're face camping more to try to prevent that. So I think it kind of becomes this sort of cycle for some people where it's highly effective until it's not, and then that's maybe where we also see some people that devolve into, this game is so survivor side.
It looks like we agree on this. So what would you say?
Yeah.
What would you say is the point of friction? Where do we disagree on? Anything at all, or what do you?
No, I don't think we disagree. I think so. My initial disagreement was just with the video that you posted had you playing a Demogorgon match, where I think personally you went from, I might need to tactically tunnel, or I might need to tunnel these guys, to the complete opposite of, I'm gonna be super nice and do one hook.
Yeah. No,
and so I was like,
admittedly, the gameplay game is more of an example. I don't think it's the main.
Yeah. And I always worry, and I think we'll be able to talk about this more later. I always worry when you're like, there was an offhand remark of like, if you guys take anything from this match, it's that you may need to tunnel, or and I worry that 250,000 people or whatever might see that and go, right, he said it, the man said it, I gotta do it. And
well, that's also just how the internet goes, right? Odds being as influential as you are, like, you're the biggest.
No, that's a great point, and it's something that I have some notes to discuss later. And mind you, probably that came out of frustration rather than a cold, calculated, like, oh yeah, of course. But the thing that I would double down on is, if you tunnel one person out, let's say there's 4 survivors, right? I tunneled Dwight. The other 3 I don't touch. Do you think I care very much that one of the other ones has a really strong medkit? That one of the other ones has an incredibly good setup of deliverance, endgame perk? Like, I don't. And sure. I think if anything, that match was a bit of an example, if people want to go and watch it, of, if you play nice, you open yourself up to being hit by all kinds of nasty little surprises. And tunneling is so good at just avoiding this. What does it matter if you have deliverance if you're the last person I kill? What does it matter if you have an amazing medkit if I'm going to chase you once and hook you once and you're dead? And that, I think, is a problem. And we can eventually get to that. But of course, if anyone comes out of that video with that like pessimistic view, they're probably internalizing the frustration that I felt then, and I hope that's not what I put up.
Yeah,
I don't think even that's what you put up. At the end of the day, the internet's going to just translate the way they want to translate things, right? So if they hear you say that, even if it's not you, anybody could do this, they'll like start thinking this is the way to do it. Because I think like we are experienced enough players in this game that we know when tunneling needs to be happening. You know what I mean? And I think I versed enough people that when that happens, like whenever I post videos of like gameplay, let's say on TikTok, immediately I get floods of comments being like, "You're tunneling, you're camping, and that's awful."
Very moral high ground. I've noticed, like, of people like, whoa, what did you just do here?
Which is bizarre, because the people I played against after the match, they go, "GG's, good game." You know what I mean? Like, they understood what was happening, but because people just see, it's also just people throwing buzzwords, like DVD buzzwords, camping, tunneling, holding hostage, always the same thing that gets thrown away. Always, like, I don't even know what the meaning of those words mean anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I always, whenever people in my chat say, "Why are you camping this person?" I'm like, it's endgame. Like, I feel like the last 2 gens to endgame is like a different game.
Yeah.
Even though me and Dylan were talking about this earlier, that it's so hard, because there are games when I go in and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna not play as intense early game. Next thing I know, 3 gens pop, I have 1 hook. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You don't get a warning when a game starts how it's gonna go sometimes.
Because I don't know what they're running. I don't know how they're gonna play.
No.
And then I try to be, I don't want to be mean, and then like I lose, and I'm like, I'm gonna be mean, and then they have fun, and I don't know what to do. I'm always wrong.
Do you guys think it kind of bad if you get tunneled out of a game?
No, I much rather be tunneling and camped out a game than slug for 4 minutes. I say this.
Oh
all the
yeah,
time.
no,
Always, yeah.
I'm
to take chances,
100%
I'm
with
happy
you.
to be tunneled. I think that's fun.
Oh
But
yeah,
if I get down and leaves me on the ground for 4 minutes, I want to
yeah,
be C. I don't want to be there. I'm not playing the
yeah,
game. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, I'm with you. I do think that that's much worse. Like it just feels like a waste of everyone's time, especially if you're a streamer or you're trying to record videos or make content. It feels really bad when you're in a game where it's like, all right, well, this is going to end when this guy wants it to end. I'm here on the ground for 4 minutes, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that kind of talking or kind of circling it back a little, like thinking about it, and it goes back to what Dro and I were talking about before you hopped in. Was I had a game the other day where I was like, these guys are either throwing for flashlight saves or they're just playing loose. They just got done bullying someone else or something, and they came in here with that same energy. And I was like 2 slugged, 1 on hook, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up and like hook you, and I'm gonna let you guys unhook. I'm gonna let you have, because like this is maybe a little too intense.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, like the comp strategies come out. They 99 a gen so that deadlock procs on it, so they can work on other gens. And I was like,
what?
Okay, yeah, 3-man out.
You give them an inch, they took a mile.
Yeah, and so this conversation sometimes devolves into, why are you tunneling at 4 gens, or why are you camping at 5 gens, when it's like, because if I don't, this match will be so far from my grasp that there's no longer any contention. It's, I guess I'll just camp you an end game. Or
that's the thing. It's like you go against a team, you don't know anything about them. If it's a strong team, let's say even like a tournament playing team, and you tunnel them, to them that's just a Tuesday. Like they understand that that's what you're gonna do, because they're not gonna give you a chance to win otherwise. Sadly, let's say you're not playing the strongest killer on the strongest map, right? So you tunnel them, they prevent it, they come take hits, they fail or not, and you have a very close game, and that was that.
Yeah.
But maybe doing that exact same thing next match, you play against 4-liter babies doing archives with 300 hours each, and then you absolutely destroy them. And it's the same Dead by Day. It's the same game. It's the same day. It's the same MMR. It's the same matchmaking. It's the same everything. But you get a completely different group and you destroy them. So in retrospect, you feel bad about the second. In retrospect, you think it was the right thing to do against the first. But only in retrospect. You cannot know ahead of time. Sometimes, as you pointed out in your story, you assume that the other side is just incapable of playing around tunneling. And the good teams are capable of playing against, again, obviously, exceptions, right? Good luck taking hits against the nerves and so on. But yeah, like it's a difficult one. It's a tricky one.
But I will also play devil's advocate and say that tunneling camping is not something that needs to happen every game at the start of the game.
No.
I do find it to be when I play Survivor, because I play 50-50 pretty much nowadays. I do know it and understand that it's really frustrating when a game just starts out, you're a 5 gens, you get hooked first, someone goes for the unhook, and then and you get chased again. I understand that, so I don't really want to advocate or say that tunneling camping needs to happen. I feel like it's very much ear by ear, or like what is going on, that you need to make those decisions on the fly.
Yeah. There will be games where it doesn't even feel natural.
Exactly, right?
So many people early on that you're like, I don't care who's there on hook. I'm chilling. I'm doing great.
Exactly. And then like I feel like a lot of things right now are pushing the direction to like tunnel. For example, distortion, huge perk to run nowadays, correct? Especially if you're a newer player. Say you down someone and hook them, you can't find anyone. A lot of people are very immersed gamers nowadays as well.
Yeah,
hate immersion with a passion. Hate it. And then like if I can't find someone at gen, like you know what I mean, and someone just got unhooked, I'm like, well, I know there's 2 survivors here. I'm gonna go back. And then what usually happens? The injured person panics and runs, while the healthy survivor just kind of crouches and hides somewhere. And like, what are you making that decision? You know what I mean?
Right.
But and then also map sizes are a pain nowadays. I would say as well. I feel like thank God the Eerie Crow change is nice. I think it's still a pretty strong map in my opinion. But the size at least is nice. And I'm a deathslinger main. So like I'm slow. I have a bad knee. It takes me a long time to get around maps. You know what I mean? So I get like back to back, because I always get the same map. So I get back.
That's actually a really good point. If you tunnel a person, most of the times, unless you're playing Pyramid Head, they don't go across the map.
No.
Like they are there. Like people don't fly while they're hooked. So yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, some maps do kind of point you. You look at the gens in the distance, and you're like,
no, how do I go there?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
But I understand everyone's frustration with it. But like,
agreed.
Like we could bring up like to your tweet when like the reasons why killers gravitate towards tunneling. And
Okay.
I'm reading this, I agree with everything because hit and
Do,
run.
do, do you guys want me to show the picture?
Yeah,
Sure.
I don't know if we'll have it full screen, but yeah,
I can always
try.
edit
Hold
and
up.
post.
All right. I hope I didn't remove it. Well, I'll just grab it from my Twitter real quick.
No worries.
But yeah, this is something I put together really quickly, just for Twitter. But I've got some extra notes today for you guys for this
Ooh,
to go a bit more in
Oh,
detail.
the behind the
So-
scenes. Yeah.
Right, I got the picture. Hold up. I'll show it as part of my camera if that's okay with everyone.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
that should work.
All right, let's see if that works. Right, so
Beautiful.
There it is.
here is forgive me, 5 different playstyles, which are pretty common, and how to counter them. And notice that most of them only require a perk, 2 perks, maybe an item across all of the survivors. Not on everyone, just across the whole team.
Mm.
So hit and run, very common playstyle back in the day. Bring a medkit, bring Circle of Healing, which people bring anyway. Slugging, bring this, bring that. Endgame builds, bring this, bring that. Camping, bring this, bring that. And then tunneling. And you see that there's a much longer list of things to do and a much longer list of perks to bring that not only need to be across a couple members, they need to be potentially on everyone. If you
Mhm.
want to protect. There's no perk right now in the game that you put on to make someone else have an easier time being tunnel, except for maybe for the people if you're extremely brave. So for the most part, you will need these 2 perks or something along these lines on everyone to make sure that no one gets tunneled.
Mhm.
So, what did some people make of this? Some people made of this, okay, so you're basically saying that we have to tunnel, or you're basically saying that tunneling is good, or you're basically saying that, tunneling killed President Kennedy. No, none of that. None of that. All I'm saying is there are some playstyles that over the last X months, X years have gotten worse, and tunneling has gotten better. And the way to countering on the survivor side is much
More
harder.
difficult.
Yes, and no, now that we're talking about the games that we have been playing, let me share with you guys a very interesting set of screenshots.
Yeah, please
Fresh from the presses. This is a game I played with my friends just a couple days ago. All right. So let me show you. Guys, you can see the screen, right?
Yep, I can see it.
Right, you can see it. So at this point, our friend, who is the person with least hours in the game, has been tunnel one-ed a little bit by the cannibal.
Mhm.
They've been camped for about a minute at this point. And if you look at the gens, we're about to finish one, but we still have 2 gens left. We did pretty good, don't get me wrong. But this would be a situation that a year ago would have been really, really, really scary. However, in the next few moments, one of my friends went and did reassurance. That bought us an extra 30 seconds. We finished one of the gens. When that reassurance was up, the other friend went up and also did reassurance, which you can totally do. That bought us another gen to be done. Then I went in and I exchanged. Unfortunately, Bubba, being the stupid killer he is, he immediately he hit the survivor during iframes and immediately downed them, like immediately. So what happened is the survivor died. As you can see, they're dead, and then I obviously took their place. In this situation a year ago, I say this is 100% 2 kills, probably more, because of course the killer had deadlock, know it, yada yada yada.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you what happened. Since they still had reassurance, they managed to finish another gen. The Leon came for me. He unhooked at the perfect time. He went down. I would have gone down, but the Claudette finished the gen and I got my adrenaline, which put me out of mending state. Thanks to the new Know It auto reading, I managed to find Know It really quickly. It was pretty in the open, so that one would have been easy. So I found Know It right away. Then my teammate took my place on the hook, and he had Deliverance. I removed Know It, he delivered himself, hit the killer with a dead heart, and we all made it out.
Man, the calm strats over here, eh?
Now, you might think, okay, this is maybe 1 in a million. Oh my God, why is this an example of anything? Just go back 1 year in your heads. Like, 1 year ago, literally the entire team had to bring 3 to 4 borrowed
Oh, for
times.
sure. Yeah.
So
There's no
no room
reassurance.
for funny little deliverances, funny little unbreakables. You had your exhaustion perk, maybe an info perk, and you had to have borrowed time and probably decisive. Very little room for creative use of team perks, which right now I would argue are extremely powerful. Solo players aside, poor things, it's extremely powerful, especially on teams that are coordinated like this. 1 year ago, this guy doing the exact same strategy would have absolutely kicked our ass and gotten 2 kills at the very least, 4 kills or 3 very, very easily. And I know that because guess what? I did it myself. I did it myself. I did this experiment millions, dozens, millions of times where I camped the person of 5 gens. And the simple math was, takes 2 minutes to kill a person. Once a person is down, you guys are screwed. And it takes several more to do gens. And if I have certain perks, it's really difficult. But guess what? Corrupt Intervention got changed. You can no longer down someone and still block 3 gens. Demon Switch got nerfed. Not 45 seconds, now 30. Not quite as impactful. And the whole reassurance and having extra perks. Camping right now, even though it's annoying, and I'm sure it happens to you a lot, if you went on a very serious mission to win all of your games and you camped, it only takes one team with 2 of these reassurances and you lose. You straight up lose. It's no longer a 100% effective success, or 90% success rate. And this has happened to other playstyles too. And I have a little list that I can share with you with you guys. You guys remember hit and run, right?
Yeah.
What was hit and run?
Hit and run, hit someone, chase somebody else.
Hit someone, instead of trying to commit to very long chases on very safe maps, you just ambush people, typically with stealth characters, hit them with maybe mangled add-ons or sloppy butcher to make the healing difficult. Maybe you have nurses to catch them healing, right? And then maybe have some passive slowdown, ruin, whatever, to force people off gens. This was very effective for a long time. What happened? Why don't we see people do this much more? You guys can tell me.
Oh, we remember the boon meta. I mean, healing is so much.
It's so strong.
Even though I think Circle of Healing changed healing in the entire game. For the worse. Still.
Right.
This is why I hate Michaela with a passion.
Even if we argue that maybe this playstyle was too strong and it needed a nerf, it's undeniable that it has become worse. Even if you have a lobby that has 0 medkits, there's nothing telling you that they don't have 2 boons and they will keep up. You will not grind them down by just making healing harder. Not to mention that, hey, the person healing might have off the record. You won't see their aura. Nurses calling, maybe not so appealing anymore when the survivor that might be the most vulnerable to healing doesn't get affected by it. Don't forget, off the record, even if you touch a gen and do a conspicuous action, you still don't have auto reading. So do we really blame killers sometimes for not running this perks anymore? It makes sense. It makes sense that they've fallen into a bit of disuse or misuse or lack of use.
Sure.
And there's more playstyles that have had this happen to them. Endgame builds, I would argue, were at their peak really, really, really good. For some of my win streaks where my goal literally is just to win no matter what, even if I have to sell my grandma, I will do it no matter what. On several killers, I did try hybrid, mid endgame builds, and they were really, really good. And it created these situations where survivors would lose no matter what in the mid game. In the mid game, sometimes there will be situations where I'm like, I have this Adam hook right here. It's his second hook. He doesn't have deliverance. These people are all injured. I know that they can't heal because Circle of Healing doesn't exist. And I know that they don't have medkits anymore because maybe I've used Franklin's on all of them. And I know that if they want to rescue, they're going to die. So no one's going to rescue. So I know that I can camp this guy for 60 seconds. Even if the last jump pops, it doesn't matter because I have no way out and Noid. And it's a guaranteed 2-3 kills after this person dies. And that was really powerful. And I'm not saying this didn't need to be nerfed. Yeah, I think it did. No, it was a bit stupid. But this is no longer a guarantee of anything. Survivors now bring adrenaline a lot more often. Remember, they don't need to bring BT. They don't need to bring many perks that before were just filling every free slot available. Reassurance would absolutely kill this. If I camp the guy thinking, okay, 60 seconds and he's dead, and it takes them 20 seconds to open gates plus no way out, there's no way they get this. Well, one little Rebecca runs in, presses F, my whole plan up in flames.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I don't want to risk it. So I'm not even going to try. There's a risk. Remember, all of these strategies from now on are going to become riskier. We'll see that later. The tunneling, not so much. So endgame, in my opinion, has gone down a little bit. Probably it should have, but it's gone down a little bit.
Yeah.
And another playstyle that wasn't talked about super commonly, but I'm sure you guys remember fondly, was the gen control post hook style of play. This would be the killers that they chase anyone to get a pop, and then they go to the gen with Tinkerer. Remember, Tinkerer used to proc multiple times on the same gen, which, by the way, was busted. I do think this was a good change.
No, for sure.
So,
although I love that meta.
So people would run the old pop, which was a bit more consistent and powerful, and would run the old ruin, sometimes even both as a plan A, plan B. I'm sure you guys remember that.
I did.
And the plan many times was chase whoever, down a guy. Where's my Tinkerer? There, pop it. Chase whoever, get my pop. Where's my Tinkerer? Right there, and kick the same gen over and over, or split between until the team just fell apart. Now, do I need to explain why this is no longer as good as before? Pretty obvious, right?
Yeah, I mean, they gutted all of those perks, actually, all three.
And again, I'm not saying that pop should be super strong or that Tinkerer should do what it should, but the fact is, again, I'm not condoning any of this, and this is where some people think, wow, you're saying this is good. No. It's just reality. It's just
reality, yeah.
Right.
Which I'm glad is why you're talking about it and clearing it up, because when I saw the post, I saw it the way you're explaining it now, but a lot of people did retweet this saying that you're saying to tunnel. But at the end of the day, you're saying that tunneling is just the most effective thing to do in the moment, because there is like nothing really to be done about it, which I totally agree.
Well, if I had the option between making a Twitter post to complain about the game or logging into my behavior manager admin account and changing the game, I would do the other. But I can't, like I can maybe give feedback, but like clearly, like none of this necessarily I agree with. It's not what I would have the game do, but we are helpless sometimes just witnessing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that style of play also went down. I would argue that slugging also has gone down a little bit. And I mean very aggressive slugging. I'm talking nurses with Starstruck, sloppy, knockout, or Deerstalker that would just try to down everyone in the mid game. Nurse no longer applies basic attacks, so Hunt the Ground, Devours, Starstruck, those have gone down, and Nurse was the main culprit of this kind of playstyle. And even if you have a bunch of people with medkits depleted, Circle of Healing always allows survivors to retreat back into safety and have a person or two healthy, which makes even solo players smart and make them split up. And I think slugging is, you could argue that maybe it's as strong as before, but I think it's a little bit weaker. I don't know about that one. Maybe you guys disagree, but I don't think it's become super meta in this current game.
It's still very hard. I mean, even with like flip-flop boilover, if you're just running something like that and you slug some guy, and I don't say you don't get your second person.
If you have a couple unbreakables or one exponential, then it's completely over. Like, surely you don't get away with it. But even assuming that these are not super common, I would still say slugging is not super.
I don't think it's super common either. I think it happens every now and then to me, but I don't think it's super common. I would agree with that for sure.
Yeah. And that goes against like the popular theory of, you see a lot, even in my community, because there are, I would say not more, but like pretty well immersed in like newer players. There's a lot of screenshots of like people being like 4 people being slugged out. And,
that's awful. That's awful.
Yeah,
which most of the times is not maybe what the killer tries to do at 5 gens, but it's something like, they hit on me once. Guess what? You're gonna hit the ground and smell the grass. Like, some people are very petty, and they have every tool in the game available to do that. So that's regrettable. Yeah, obviously. But slugging as a go-to starting strategy that you set your mind to from the beginning, I think it's gone down. There's one strategy that, in my opinion, has maybe gotten a little bit better or has stayed the same, and that is skill checks. Nowadays, we have a few very nasty perks that do pretty well with skill checks, but I think only 1 or 2 or 3 killers pull this off. Doctor, for the most part. Yeah, I would argue that these builds have gotten similar, maybe a bit better. Merciless Storm, banger of a perk for anti-skill check. Super, super underrated. But again, do you really care about this when it's 1 killer or 2? Probably not, so it's not super relevant. And now we get to the 1 and 2 or 2 strategies that have gotten better. Unlike everything else we've been mentioning, these 2 have gotten much better. 3 gens and tunneling.
Yeah.
These have gotten stupid good. The 3 gen, I don't need to explain. There are like 4 or 5 different perks that all activate on gen kicks that have very simple conditions or very short cooldowns or have very strong effects, and they all pile up together pretty nicely. And there's one that, in my opinion, is the one that makes the rest just so worth bringing. On top of the changes that the killers did, where now their kick do 2.5 damage, obviously, like that was a big deal too. Before, kicking gens was a waste of your time many times.
Yep.
So that with small changes, yeah, kicking gens is now a bit stupid, and I think eruption is probably the you guys know the detective shows where there's like the board with all the red wires pointing to the middle. Yeah, eruption is at the middle.
Trying to solve the mystery.
Right.
Yeah.
In my
though.
humble opinion, maybe someone else has a different
No, me and Dylan have talked
interpretation.
about this before too, because when it comes to the perks like gen kicking builds, I don't think Call of Brine is that bad. I don't think Overcharge is that bad. I think it's the pairing up with those perks that becomes an issue, especially with Eruption. Because say you kick with Call of Brine and Overcharge, your first instinct is to go and stop that from regressing, but then as soon as you touch a gen, someone goes down, and you're incapacitated. So just like all that piling up regression, which is just like ridiculous. I don't know if them changing Eruption is going to change much. I don't know.
I think it would. If the perk was reworked significantly, I think you would still see a lot of gen kicks, because guess what? It's really nice to see people's auras, make them maybe insta-downable, make the gen have an explosion if they miss it, and it gives you information with Call of Brine, and it regresses faster. All of these things with 4 perks. What? That's insane. That's really good. But I think eruption is what holds the whole thing together.
Yeah.
And the other thing, of course, is tunneling. But the thing is that tunneling and 3-genning are not opposed, are not exclusive. They are intertwining. You cannot do hit and run and camp. That makes very little sense. You cannot go for a full endgame build and also have a gen control build. You cannot. You simply cannot. You don't have enough perk slots to do all of those things. But you can absolutely bring 1 or 2 perks or play a certain way to try to tunnel and still do a lot of gen kicks. And still try to hold a 3-gen. And these things not only intertwine, they just feed each other really well. If while you tunnel someone, you hit 2 other people with eruption, that is a massive turn of events for the killer. And if, God forbid, you manage to get 1 person out of the game and you have to defend a 3-gen with these perks against 3 people, that's literally impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. And to make things worse, and this is a bit of an accident, in this latest patch, seemingly many gens are spawning closer together than they should. And that is just like like the holy mix of everything that could go wrong all at once. And that is just awful. Hopefully not intended, hopefully not to stay, but so my point in that tweet, my point overall, it's sad, but when you look at the available strategies that killers have at their disposal, tunneling makes more sense by the day. If I was a tunneling salesman, I would be able to sell tunneling to anyone. Like, it just makes so much sense, and it's super sad. But
But then, okay, so with all this conversation, I'm going to direct this to Dylan and to you, Odds. What do you think could be changed to make tunneling like not as intense as it is, aside from the eruption changes? Is there anything that could be done in the game at all?
Okay.
Make tunneling not like as strong, you know? Because I personally can't think of a single thing unless they make the person that gets unhooked have iframes for 20 seconds or something. No.
Okay, that's funny.
Like, they have no collision, so they can't body block, but you also can't hit them until they touch a generator. I don't know like what else could be really done.
Okay, I see 2 problems. Right? Number 1, if you make anti-tunneling too good, like too good, then people will want to get tunneled. Like, imagine that there was some kind of entity interaction where if the killer is within close proximity of a person that's been unhooked, the killer gets stunned for 5 seconds. Like, just straight up, like an automatic decisive strike. Even if you look at the person, just looking at them, bam, you get stunned for 5 seconds. What do you think the survivors would try to do? They would try to get in your way and make it horribly difficult for you to avoid this. So you need to be careful not to make anti-tunneling too strong, or else you make people want to be aggressively tunneled, right? And this is something that happened a long time ago with the somewhat all decisive, with the somewhat all unbreakable, where people could do gens and there's nothing you could do. You grab them, decisive, big stun. You down them, unbreakable, get back. You go for someone else, guess what? They do their objective, get it, and get out. So that's a concern. It should still happen. It should still happen. It's a concern, but it should still happen. There should still be some kind of fear for the killer to tunnel. And I think that one of the problems that we have in this meta, that it's not super obvious, and you guys tell me if you think I'm saying something super obvious, please, is that the all decisive, more so than being strong in the 5 seconds, the nicest part about it is that it was quiet. It was a surprise. If you down a person, you had, okay, 60 seconds. Oof. Damn, do I want to do this? Right now, let me ask you a question. What is the best thing to do if someone gets unhooked in your face? What is especially if you have save as for loss or something, what is the best thing to do?
Just
slap them immediately.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
It's
like, even if you're not going to tunnel them, just slap them. Why not? You make them have to mend. Even if you don't tunnel, you make them have to mend, which is awesome. Maybe mending timer could be looked at. If you get hit off the hook, maybe mending could be shorter. That's a potential solution. What's the downside to that? You tell me. If you get tunnel, nothing.
There's no downside. You get a stack, you have to mend, and then
Right. So, so your idea as a killer right now is, number one, to slap people as much as you can, to delay them if you're not going to tunnel them, and to make tunneling easier if you are. And another thing is to use your ears. If you chase an LOD that just got off basement, and she's going, ooh, I'm injured. What does that tell you already? Wait a minute. She's making injured noises. She doesn't have off the record. 9, 10, bang. That's not something that you could do with decisive before. With decisive, 60 seconds where you don't know if that person has decisive and you might risk eating it or not. In my opinion, the fact that off the record is so strong actually hurts it, because killer now can tell that one of the effects is there.
That's true.
So if I see a survivor make a silly play and I hear that they make hurting noises, and that means that they don't have off the record, guess what I'm gonna do? If I'm a bit of a bad person for a moment, I'm just gonna down you because I know it's free. Right? So that's a problem. If off the record is going to be an anti-tunneling perk, which it should be or it could be, then don't make it give itself away.
Which is true, because a lot of perks in the past don't really give it away, and now the perks does give it away.
You don't have any fear. And as you probably know, decisive strike is not as common anymore. So
even if it's used, I don't really care about it.
Many killers don't.
And I think it should be reverted, I feel, in my opinion. But Dylan, what do you think about this whole kerfuffle?
It's a tough question. There are proposed solutions for a lot of different things. Basekit, unbreakable with asterisk at the end because the PTB had some. We probably shouldn't make assumptions that it's coming. No, people continue, but
just because they said in the forums, the devs themselves, that was a part of the finisher mori, and it's not one that's guaranteed. And especially if people reacted so poorly, let's not assume that's happening tomorrow.
No. But that is a always sort of herald proposed change to slugging. I don't think slugging, 4-man slugging, I personally don't think is as common a problem. Camping, you could say that killers' powers should turn off within so much range of the hook, or that the timer. I think that just promotes proxy camping, which is still less effective. Whatever. When it comes to tunneling, it's really complicated, I think, to make like a base mechanic change, which I always try to think of base mechanics for these things instead of perks. And
do you feel like, HiDro, that DS should be reverted? Because I have a bit of an issue with that, and I think people don't realize.
Not reverted to the state that it was. I think having a 5-second stun would be something that I would be okay with. I don't think having invincibility for 60 seconds is good for the game, but I think a longer stun is fine, in my opinion.
Okay, so what I think we all agree that the current decisive is a bit stupid and not very effective.
Yeah, you just don't see it.
And mind you, I say that with an asterisk, because I know that good survivors are not afraid to run 3DS unbreakables.
Sure.
Like DS on a team that's smart is really good. But there's two things about it, right? Number one, you need to not use it in the open. And more
Yes.
importantly, you need to use it against the right killer. And
Well,
that's
sure.
that's the part that's really, really stupid. About a third of the killers right now, either through sheer speed or through put a clown bottle on your feet, destroy decisive. They destroy it.
Mhm.
And I don't feel like that's fair. I don't feel
100%
like that's
agreed.
good. I don't know why an anti-tunneling perk discriminates.
Mhm.
And I've suggested for a very long time, privately, publicly, through encrypted SMS, USB stick on a pigeon, in any way I can, that some killers should lose their power temporarily when stunned. It makes no sense to me that if you're Ghostface and you get stunned, you lose your stealth. If you're Plague and you get stunned, you lose your red power. But if you're Nurse and you get stunned, you still have your blinks. Like,
Yeah.
make the blinks go away.
Just put
that-
everybody in a cooldown for.
Then you would have decisive, even if we don't change it the way it is. We would have decisive slow down a Nurse, but also slow down a Trapper on a similar level.
Mhm.
And then if DS needs to be a second longer, then be it. But it need like decisive, countering one of the most important things in the game, which is tunneling, needs to apply to each killer individually. There shouldn't, like, could you guys imagine the outrage if you could set up a trap on your feet and then have the person step on it with decisive? That would be stupid, right?
Yeah, I mean, as the knight today, it was a little different. Somebody power struggled me, but I was able to take the assassin, draw him all the way around, drop him,
Oh,
pick
to
somebody
put a
up.
fast one.
Yeah, and so he ran to them and downed them by the time. And but
Oh.
with DS, it'd be almost the same thing. There's a lot of killers that just Huntress Hatchet just doesn't.
Would
Doesn't
you
do
guys
it.
would you
Well,
guys
I
be
want to say that idea is great. I'm surprised I didn't see this before you saying it, but like I think the idea is great. When I said reverted back to the 5 seconds, I was mostly thinking about it in more of just like a common player kind of way.
right?
I'm
right.
obviously in the right hands, good survivors to pull off a lot of crazy things with perks that are like not good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because like you said, like survivors, most players when they use decisive, they go down in the open, doesn't matter. But a good survivor will go down like near a window, so at least they get more distance from like whatever. You know what I mean?
Even if they're in the open, like with a bit of teamwork. Like
Mhm.
I understand that it's really hard to expect this from your average lobby that is bloody clueless, and God bless them, right? They're doing archives and not playing in a 4-man with six, with Navy 6 seal comms, like understandable.
Yeah.
But even if you're in the open, you hit a killer with decisive. Now you don't have deep wound anymore, so now you can use that hard. Very important against Nurse.
Smart, yeah.
Now you can get adrenaline and get fully healed, which you couldn't before if you had deep wound, right? Let's say he
Mhm.
hits you off the hook. Now you can have someone else come and take a hit. Decisive is strong. The way it is now, make no mistake, it is a strong perk. It's probably still, even at its worst, still better as an insurance than half the other survivor perks, which are pathetic. So it doesn't need a massive buff.
Yeah.
I just think it should not discriminate between killers. It makes no reason to me that it makes no sense to me that some killers just eat it up and it's not even a threat for them.
Right.
And another thing that I don't know how you guys feel about, that bothers me a lot, is that there's no free, easily accessible perk for survivors to counter tunneling. To counter healing, to counter anti-healing, they have bodily knowledge, which is easy to find. To counter camping, even they have camaraderie. No one runs it, but hey, it's there. If you get camped every game, run camaraderie, at least it's a free perk, right?
Mhm.
Like they have a lot of perks to counter a lot of things. And the most important thing they need to counter, what is the common, easy to obtain perk for anti-tunneling? Off the record, from Zarina?
Yeah,
Decisive from a paid DLC? That's appalling.
That's a
If
good
the-
point.
I think there should be another perk in some capacity. I'm not a fantastic perk designer, but there should be some other perk that helps with that. They could rework this is not happening. They could rework one of those perks that literally no one runs, or introduce a new one like they did with Shattered Hope. Give
A
survivors
nerve.
one tiny little perk that doesn't do a lot but protects them if they get tunneled.
Yeah.
So that new players do not have to go through that.
That's
Yeah.
fair.
And I think that would be super, super important. And it bothers me that it's never a part of the conversation.
I think this is a really
Yeah.
important part of the conversation too, because I think it would be really easy for anybody to throw a stone at the sort of proverbial glass house and just be like, well, you're talking about very niche scenarios for good. But I think when anybody, and this is kind of a common problem I see on Twitter and stuff, when we discuss a perk change, a buff or a nerf, I think you have to really see how it scales. Like, how effective will it be as a deterrent at a really high level, and then at a lower level, how effective would it be? You have to try to scale for situations. So, I like your proposed DS change of putting anyone's power in cooldown for a duration, right? I think that is a very good deterrent at a low level, and yeah, it's strong at a high level, but it's a deterrent, right? So it's there for a reason. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing to sort of acknowledge. Just with any sort of change, we might be talking about niche scenarios, but you really should factor those in. Are they the most important? No, that's not where the majority of the players are. But you have to be sure things aren't busted at a super high end. Now, I did actually I wanted to transition in a little bit just regards to like tunneling and perks and some of the stuff we were talking about. I wanted to kind of talk about Nightlight. Comp DBD player, achieved something pretty crazy. Played each killer once, same build on every killer. Even played a bugged pinhead, so GG there. Because that bug is menacing.
What happened? What happened? I missed that much.
So it's that pinhead bug where when your chain hits something at a specific angle, you can't look up or down. So you're just and your arms disappear.
Your camera, you become like so you're like a mime. You cannot move sideways.
Yeah, and the survivors, like when they see you, you're just sort of T-posing at them. There's all the animations. It's very weird.
Honestly, I think that would give some kind of advantage. I'd be intimidated.
I'd be so intimidated.
I don't think I'd run that well as a survivor against that.
I'm more impressive that he got a 4K F5 gens with twins, who has like the biggest bugs right now.
If your computer's all right, you should be able to pull off a twins match. But yeah, it is a little risky.
That bug happens to some people, and if it doesn't happen to you, you're kind of safe, seemingly.
But I did have a chance to go back and because I was curious. I was very curious about how that happened, and I'm not the best player in the world. I will never put up that as like a facade, but to me, no gen slowdown, 4K never drops 5 gens.
Right.
What?
Let's for those at home wondering, what does it mean to have gen slowdown? Maybe it's a good time to talk about the build, and then you tell us what you saw, because I do remember the build. Yeah. He ran green add-ons on every killer.
Yes.
Save for a couple killers like Knight that have very bad greens. That's pretty good.
Awful
greens. That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
On most killers, double greens, pretty nice. You don't have a lot of busted, insane insta-down Eries or anything, but it's pretty good. It's very serviceable. And then he had Corrupt Intervention.
Yep.
Which is not a slowdown perk. It's more like not a regression perk, more like a stalling.
Delay.
Don't do a gen in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's nothing to make a gen that's progress go back. It's Corrupt, still very good, one of the best. And then Save the Best for Last on every killer, mind you. Sloppy Butcher on every killer, mind you, even though some can't quite apply it. And the last perk was Bamboozle, which is to me the most interesting.
Yeah, that one's interesting.
So the idea is that you're kind of covered. The killers that are very strong, you don't really need much. Corrupt is awesome. The killers that benefit from hit and run, say there was last sloppy, is quite adequate. And some killers that struggle with windows or with strong loops, you have Bamboozle, which is particularly super useful on killers like Cannibal and Chenso killers, right? Myers and so on. So that build was insane. That's a really good build.
That's a really good build.
It is a good build, but it's like, to me, if you tell me that someone got 30 wins in a row with that, and mind you, he had missing perks on some of them. His Ghost Fist was level 1. He only had 1 perk. Like, what the? Like, it's mad impressive. It's mad impressive. I'm not sure I could manage it. Definitely not in 1 or 2 attempts the way he did. That is mad. What do you learn from watching it?
So watching it, and I think it ties into this conversation really well because, and keep in mind, Nightlight is a comp player, and comp DBD is different. You get someone out.
No feelings whatsoever.
Yeah. Post game chat's closed.
These people can tunnel someone for 5 gens, lose with 1 hook, and at the end they'll say, "GG, well played."
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And there's no bad blood. It's very different.
Yeah. So what it kind of boiled down to is getting somebody on that first hook and then sort of in a lot of matches, not every match because different variables, different players, but sort of backing off the hook, letting somebody run in for the unhook almost, keeping people away, hit you with sloppy, you're going to run away, I'm going to hit you with sloppy, maybe commit to you for a second, but the minute someone starts to go for the unhook, pressure the unhook down them. So that there was it was this sort of pseudo proxying, but not too close so that it was an obvious camp, lure people in. And in some cases, tunneling in some cases. And this is not a moral conversation. I think one thing I want to say is like, whether you despise tunneling and camping or you're pro, I don't, for the sake of a conversation, I don't want to put like a moral, you're good or you're bad if you do one or the other or whatever. I don't. So just looking at this objectively, are these strategies like, obviously not the average player. I don't think I could do this. It's an interesting idea and I want to do it, but I don't think I think my blood pressure is too high. So, but when you look at this, it's like, are these strategies specifically like, tunneling, I think was the more common one we saw in any of that VOD material. Is it too strong? Should there be base mechanics, or is it skillful to tunnel because you still have to like mind game and get them down again, or you could overcommit while 3 people are doing gens, or like where do we land on, is it too strong? Should we do something about it? And then like, is it skillful to be able to pull it off or not? Which is super subjective, I understand, but I don't know, where do either of you land on any of that?
I think that something should be done to an extent, but I also think that tunneling is like very effective strategy, 100%. But it's also like, depending who you're versing, could be a detriment to you. I've gone on games where I try to tunnel someone now and 4 gens get popped, and like it's like depends on the map, depends on the killer you're playing.
Sure.
Like, there's a lot of different factors that clue in on when it's skillful, when it's not. I don't know. It's really hard to say, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But one thing that's worth mentioning, by the way,
Yes.
that some people might get the wrong idea. Some people think tunneling is the very first survivor you see, you just like write it on your little notebook. You're
My
dead.
little hate book.
Like it's not like that, especially at higher levels, especially if you watch a killer as experienced as this one. They're not necessarily going to do that. You're gonna poke at different parts of the team. You're gonna see who gives you the easiest chases. If you notice that one person is particularly clumsy or looks particularly lost, you're gonna go for the you're gonna go for the vein. You're gonna be very mean. And tunneling is not necessarily like the first person you see try to hook them 3 times, because that can backfire. Like that person could have an insane item, could have an insane setup, be the best survivor you ever seen, be a cheater that can see you through walls and you never catch them. Could backfire horribly. Typically, you're gonna poke at different parts of the team to keep the gens from being delayed, to delay things until one mistake happens. Someone gets trapped on a hook. Someone gets caught healing. Someone taps a gen, goes down, loses off the record, and that is when you tunnel. Like, you don't need to tunnel a lot. That's another thing. You don't need to tunnel a lot. Like, there are moments in a game where from experience, that was it. You guys have lost. That's it. That grab, you just couldn't do it. That gen that you lost, that you had 99 and you gave me a grab there, or you went down short, that's it. You've lost again. So yeah, tunneling is accessible and easy and pays off for newer players, because other newer players have a hard time playing around it. Right. And for players like Nightlight, he's not stupid. He's just not gonna brute force chases, even with his perks. He's not gonna brute force. He's gonna be smart, and his chases are gonna be really smart, and his targeting is gonna be very smart, and he's going to understand, like, but he will still do it. And does it have skill? Yeah, of course. The skill is, it goes both ways. It's in who he picks, who he gets to tunnel, and whether or not the team that he goes against is effective at protecting that person, and whether that person is an insane player, super solid player that makes that tunneling awful and impossible to pull off. So it doesn't really take anything away from him. It's not like, oh, you tunnel, you have 9,000 hours and won 60 tournaments, so you're bad. Like, obviously it's not like that.
yeah, for sure.
But that doesn't mean that, it's fun. Doesn't mean that it's good for the game. Doesn't, like, just because you play the game with the rules that are given in the way that makes the most sense, or that is the most likely to result in a win, doesn't mean that you're a bad person, and doesn't mean that it's the way the game should be. Maybe there's a different alternative where tunneling is an option, but hey, maybe spreading hooks is almost as good. Or maybe going for gen control is almost as good, or maybe making healing difficult and trying to choke the team by a slow healing is almost as good, right?
Yeah.
If there's alternatives, then maybe tunneling is not the best option always, that people always have to be afraid of, and it would not hurt at all if there were more team perks or more ways for teams to handle tunneling. Right now, like I feel like the perk design and the way the cookie crumbles is just so badly designed for average teams or below average teams that cannot handle it. Like, think about the Vittorio perk. It's a perk that makes gens go a little bit faster if you're being chased next to gens,
Yeah,
which is
that's
something
right.
that you never want to
You
do.
want to do?
That you never, ever, ever want to do. Where are the perks that make gens faster when someone else has died? Where are the perks that make gens faster or makes you heal faster if you're dead on hook? Where are the perks that are like, oh, I mean, like, there's not that many of them.
It's like fast track is like one of the only ones that
And
I can
even
even
That
think
still
of.
requires getting great
and
skill
even
check.
and even and even
Yeah.
that is kind of,
It's not even that good because it's a one
it's
time.
not even
use.
that strong, right? So
Yeah.
if we created more resources for survivors to punish tunneling in different small ways,
Yeah, that's
and
interesting.
for killers to be encouraged to do other things, like, yeah, I think that would begin to turn things a little bit around. A little bit. Obviously,
Yeah.
you're like, some people will commit to a strategy even if it's not that good.
Not
You guys
good.
have seen cannibals camp for 20 minutes and get one kill, and they're like, yeah, I'm happy I did that. Good. I did good. I'm so
Bro,
good.
those are also the kind of people that no matter what you do, they don't care. They
Right.
don't
Yeah.
care
You're
about
not.
the
You're
game,
not
don't
going to
care
be
about
able
their
to.
cases.
Yeah.
They're there to tunnel and camp someone out, and then they're like, did that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
all they care about. So those people, you can't really like stop from doing those
Yeah.
things ever. But like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm excited to talk to you, because the ideas of like doing things that like maybe help out the game as tunneling is happening is really interesting. Maybe do gens faster or heal faster. I like those ideas because I didn't hear those before, and I think it's like that's really interesting.
What I have a good question on is the conversation typically leads to how do we, which I think it has to be like given to, they're like interwoven a little bit, but the conversation often leans towards like what can we give survivors to combat versus I also think that while that's interesting and like kind of necessary, I think that if we're not careful, really the way that Otz plays, the way a lot of people play is very much it's a chess game of like 7 gens, 4 survivors, 3 health states per survivor, and a partridge in a pear tree kind of thing, where it's just like it's really difficult, I think, for new to even intermediate killers to sort of like map out the entire map in their head and like be like, okay, they got unhooked here, and then they probably went to that gen because that would make sense, and then maybe the boon was here because I think like what can we do for killers to not make the game necessarily easier, but to promote or give them a drip feed of like helping them along in their ability to master some of these things? Because I also think while tunneling is the easiest thing to do, obviously, I kind of what I went back to earlier, I don't think there's anything to tell them to do otherwise or to make that easier. There's a lot of things that have made it easier for Survivor to combat tunneling or just easier to play Survivor, but not that it would be great, but basekit barbecue, or like, is there something that can happen that says like, hey, go over there, there's a person, right? Because like, does a new killer hop in and then hook and then wander the map for 4 minutes and not find anyone? Probably, right? So what can be done to maybe make it so that the killers have I don't want to say incentive, because I think if you want to win, that's your incentive is to like win at all costs. So like blood
creating a
points
3v1
or-
is way too
Right.
attractive as it is. It's not like that's gonna go away. There's
right.
like what do you do to make like some people are brave and they think, okay, once a person dies, make the other 3 survivors 2 gens 33% faster or whatever to compensate for it, and that is hecking scary to try to balance around.
Yeah.
I can't
No.
even imagine. I don't even go like, oh, that's bad, that's good. I don't even want to know
Yeah.
what
I
kind
don't want
of
to
muddy
imagine it.
waters that creates. That would be so hard. Can you imagine playing a killer and be like, okay, I killed 2 people, now these 2 guys do gens 50% fast? Like, I don't even want to know. But I do have some ideas, and maybe HiDro, you want to chime in?
No, you go for it. You go for it.
I do think that one of the most depressing things you'll realize if you play in like a semi-comp or straight-up comp setting, even if there are perk restrictions where survivors are not allowed to bring the best perks, one thing you realize is that hooking multiple survivors is absolutely brutal for the killer.
Oh,
it is
so bad.
Brutal.
Anytime I
Not
go
just
for an accidental 12 hook game, I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? This is so bad. You
like,
know? And people are like, but like you got all those hook counts, it feels good. I'm like, no, it doesn't. It does not feel good that I have 8 hooks right now and all the gens are done. I don't feel like I did anything good.
yeah. That's not enough. Hold up, I'm taking some notes.
Mhm.
Think about the rewards you get as a killer for hooking everyone. Grim Embrace.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever used that perk?
Once.
Absolutely.
It only
I
works
wasn't
when they're
useful, it
already
wasn't good.
playing poorly.
Oh man,
I got it to proc at 1 gen left, and I'm like, all right.
it's bad. It's bad, and it could be better. It could be reworked into being a bit more accessible.
Sure.
Barbecue. Some people, honest to God, would throw games to chase the 4th guy for barbecue stack, and that was lovely.
Yeah, I was gonna bring it up. Too.
I think it was a good change that BP doesn't come from one perk, but hey, so we have another perk that again could encourage this a little bit, now doesn't. No Way Out. My favorite perk in the game, possibly. It's a perk that encourages you to hook multiple people, and then it blocks gens for 12, 24, 36, 48, 60. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think there's a huge difference between 48 and 60? No. But there's a huge difference between 3 and 4 hooks on 3 different survivors. So in my opinion, using No Way Out, I am super happy to get 2 hooks with No Way Out. It's still insane. It's still insane. So even with a perk that is specifically designed for you to hook multiple people, I still want to hook only 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I don't need the 4th at all. So these perks are badly designed and could use some tweaks and some changes to encourage and actually make the killer go, damn, you guys know how you feel when you have Devour Hope and you're like, oh, damn, we have to find Devour now, but the killer got 3 hooks that he gave us for free. Ah, okay. There's like a back and forth. We didn't just like the killer became powerful, but it wasn't just because he kicked the gen twice, you know? He became powerful because he got 3 hooks that he earned, and he allowed 3 on hooks to happen safely. That's a big deal. You know? Now, not only do these perks fail utterly at encouraging the killer, the survivor perks dissuade you brutally from doing this. If you play against comp teams, like once you've hooked 2 or 3 people, you now have to worry about the second guy could have deliverance, which is a insanely good perk. Insanely good perk that in my opinion, even though I don't think it's like OP or whatever, like it does punish you for allowing people to unhook.
Yeah.
Like, do you know how safe I feel when I've tunneled a person out and I know no one has deliverance? I hook again. I'm like, well, take your 4 chance, buddy. Take your 4 chance. Yeah, take it. I know you don't have 100% chance. So that is why am I rewarded for tunneling up, dude, 3 hooks into the game?
Yeah.
And punished if I allow unhooks? Maybe that should be different. Don't you guys think that maybe deliverance could activate on someone if you unhook someone and then that person gets tunneled? Maybe that could be, I don't know,
If you're hooked
super
back to back.
stupid idea. Maybe this has a massive drawback that I'm not seeing right now. But don't you think it could be anti-tunneling to punish tunneling killer rather than punish killer that goes for multiple hooks? How good do you guys feel when you hook everyone and then the last survivor that you hook comes out of a hook with full health on adrenaline?
Awful, yeah.
Dude, like, why bother? Like, there are a lot.
I shouldn't activate on hooks, but
there are a lot of perks like this that just destroy you for spreading hooks. So not only are you not encouraged by your own perks, like, do you really want to get a pop from hooking a person when you could just kick the gen with eruption and no conditions? Why would you, right? So not only do your perks fail to motivate you, the other perks potentially dissuade you from doing that too. So I think a good start would be to analyze some of these perks, make a drawing board and be like, okay, how can we make these perks make the killer want to hook multiple people? Make survivors obviously not so afraid that the fourth survivor would just hide in basement forever. It's like, oh my god, I don't want to get hooked. I don't want to give the killer. That would be terrible too. Like, imagine it's like, oh, the Devour hope is so strong that we're just gonna hide in basement forever, let the guy die. You know?
Yeah.
Like that wouldn't be healthy either. So you can't go too extreme. But it would be nice if there were more perks like Devour, more perks like Old Pop, more perks like No Way Out, but maybe with a little twist. More perks like Him Embrace, but maybe with a little twist. And it would be more amazing if survivors were more rewarded for or had more tools against tunneling and less tools for destroying a killer that has failed to have a person dead on hook. Because like the thing is, you don't always need to. That's another thing that is super important. You don't always need to tunnel a person out of the game to be in a winning position. Sometimes the threat is more powerful than the execution. Sure. In my games, what I look is not for someone to die. If I'm doing a win streak, right, where my mindset is win, sell grandma, win. What I need, like the first step that makes me go, okay, this is winnable, is when I have someone dead on hook. Not dead, just dead on hook. At that moment, that person is vulnerable to dying or susceptible to bringing the whole team with them when someone tries to take a hit, go for a save, go for a bullet save, and you win either way. Either they go down and you win, or they try altruism and they fail. Sometimes, obviously, they can also succeed. Yeah. So that's the thing you need. Like, to me, hooking 3 or 4 people is just a failure of you as a killer most of the time, which is tremendously, tremendously sad. And there could be small changes to address this. Now, looking at the calendar of perk changes that we get per year, are you guys optimistic about the perk changes that we can get and how quickly these are going to happen? Because I'm not.
I want to be optimistic because otherwise I mean, yeah, of course, can't handle it. But I don't. The sort of nature of changes we've seen has been a little bit detached from, like, in theory it's pretty on paper, but in implementation it doesn't scale amongst different sort of scenarios or against, I think a good example is just Brine Overcharge and Eruption being changed. Well, Brine being released and then everything being changed. I like the idea, and this is my theory, that you have Pop and you had Surge, Jolt, and Scourge Hook, but previously in old metas you had to choose. You had to have momentum too. Like, as a killer, you had to down someone and earn that perk. But right. I feel like that was a problem. People would bring these slowdown perks and never get a hook or get maybe one hook. And so I feel like the devs made perks more accessible to new players, but now as it scales up, it's overpowering and suffocates survivors.
That's an interesting take.
So it's like, I don't want to say they're catering to a part of the player base. I think they did a good thing in making perks accessible and like, just slap it on.
That's actually fascinating. Sorry for interrupting you earlier. I said choose because with some of the old perks, you couldn't have all of them. You could not have Ruin and Dying and Pop. Like, that was too much. Like, you were like 2 or 1 of your perks were going to do nothing at any point. Yeah. But that's a great point, because do you guys remember how you felt 1 year ago when the first thing a killer did in your chase was kick a gen at 3%? Like, let's say you had a gen that you barely touched, and a killer let go of you and went to a gen and kicked it. You'd be like, look at this guy, poor little kill thing. Oh, he's so naive. He thinks he's gonna catch me after that. Oh, what a dumb medium. Poor little thing. He's kicking a gen, does no damage. I'm gonna go back. And now, if he does that, you're already losing your hair because you're like, he's got eruption. Oh my god, he's gone out to hide. He knows where I am. He knows where I live. He knows my address. He knows my blood type. Oh my god, what am I gonna do? Can I touch that? This is Dragon Script. Should I touch? Like,
I to just echo what Dylan said. It basically, killers are now just getting like too much value from like doing almost nothing, which is an issue. And I think we all could come to the general consensus at the end of the day, the play style of like tunneling and doing this is just what's being pushed onto us or the players, because there's no downside to doing any of this. There's like, you don't pay. Like you said, it's like before you couldn't run like Pop and Ruin as a combo. You could run as a combo, but at one point one is being used and then the other one can't, and then vice versa. But now
it feels like the perks today don't have that issue at all.
Don't have that issue.
Like, you can have your cake and eat it too, and have a side dish as well. Like, everything, have absolutely everything.
Like, more and more perks coming to Dead by Daylight because we have so many.
Oh yeah.
So like, it's like going to be hard for like. Thank God I don't balance games because I don't know how they're going to come up with any of this. I don't know. At the end of the day, they're gonna have to do some major changes to like the base game and the perks that they have in order to discourage this kind of play style. Because right now, like, there's no reason for killers not to play like this.
Yeah,
There's no reason.
I think if we're
Besides,
talking
like, you
about,
don't want to be considered mean or whatever.
yeah,
But
that's true.
a lot of people don't give a shit.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at killer oriented, like, we know eruption's being changed. My greatest fear is that it's just it goes back to like 10 seconds of incapacitated, which
what some people suggest that drives me nuts.
I need
when
litany of
people
things.
suggest a change that would make the perk work slightly less often, but it would still be the same horrible feeling of being hit by it.
Right.
Just be like, oh, just make eruption work on outdoor gens that are not indoor.
Right.
Just make eruption work only on true gens.
Yeah.
Just make eruption only work on female characters. It's like, why?
Oh
Why?
my
It would be
God.
the same thing. It might happen less. It would feel still awful.
Yeah.
Like, no, please just change it. Just make it so that the punishment between correctly guessing randomly that someone's gonna go down and is not a 25-second difference. That's insane.
On potentially
That's
everybody.
insane. On potentially 3 people.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that you're playing with your twin who is exactly the same as you, and he has to scratch his nose for a second and he lets go of the gen? He plays the game exactly the same as you, but he has to scratch his nose. He's fine. He gets to do this gen, but you get a 25 slap. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane, and people defend it.
And the change people just make it so that a great skill check triggers, and but the problem with like being incapacitated if you fail a great skill check is it disproportionately affects newer players. So if you're great, it doesn't do anything.
Problem. Yeah, make it so that if you're good and you play on PC and you have nice FPS and you're not a streamer that's distracted by chat, you're fine.
You're good.
But anyone else, nah, I don't care. That's not me, so I don't care,
Right.
Make it so that if you have the game in Spanish, it doesn't happen. But to everyone else,
Exactly.
Like, no, that's a half measure, and it would just postpone the inevitable, which is this perk has to change.
Sure. Yeah. I will say perk changes typically in these mid-chapter reworks have been deeper cuts. When it comes to like buffs and nerfs for killers, they're typically little number changes here and there. But but for perks, Lucky Break suddenly becoming good, and like I have some faith, but I don't know that it will address. If incapacitated is still, I don't think incapacitated should ever be part of a perk. I think it should be killer abilities like twins or something.
Yeah.
But as a perk, it's too much. And so if it's still part of it, I think that's a concern. Make it, give us old ruin skill checks, or people can tap gens through them. I don't care. Give us anything else, but
something to do rather than just to sit there. Like, is there anything more depressing than have Kindred and seeing 2 people just look at each other like,
yeah. And
so that happened.
You can't click, you can't do anything.
Yeah. 25 seconds one time. Like, I'm sure the person on the hook was looking at us just going slapping each other, doing nothing. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, so I think that with eruption they'll do. I feel like almost anything is better than what we have now. I shouldn't say that out loud, but with anything else, I don't know. I really actually, and that's a good question of like, if you wanted something changed, like a bad perk that could be better, so what would you change? I would change Deathbound. I think Oblivious isn't very strong, but I think I should make it an anti-heal. If they go heal at a boon across the map. Do you want to know something
really stupid about Deathbound? It triggers when you heal someone else, right?
Yes.
And it can actually trigger on multiple people.
Yes.
So if you're working with your friend healing a third survivor and you both finish the heal, Deathbound will hit you both. Funny.
Yeah.
Or you're picking them from the ground, it will hit you both. But then if you stop, then it will only hit them. And the funniest part is that if the person has a medkit or self-care or circle of healing, you can heal them to 99 and then let them finish it. And the perk does nothing at all.
Yeah.
Nothing. It drives me up a wall. It drives me up a wall. I cannot. Don't get me started.
In a world of like self-healing and independence, I don't think Deathbound fits in this anymore.
It's so silly. Yeah, I 100% agree. That is one of like, what, 50 perks on the killer side that you could tweak or rework.
Yeah.
And the
Force
game would be
penance
better.
could be better. Like,
You know what I want? Fire up. I want fire up to get a nice change. Because I like the concept of fire up, but like it's just not enough for me to want to run it. But then
Why doesn't fire up give you a 5-6% haste when a gen gets
Something,
kicked for a couple
exactly.
seconds? That way, a gen pops during a chase, you don't feel quite as bad. You're like,
Exactly.
you gave me my trap card. You know,
Because right now
Yeah.
I get to pick up like 2% faster after 2 gens being done. Like it doesn't like feel very good.
you want to know something really funny? Me and Cope did a little talk where we planned on talking about the perks that we consider bad.
oh yeah.
Mhm.
We didn't know how long it would take. We did that for 6 hours.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we could be here for a long time.
Yeah, dude, we can't. By the way, we can't. If you want to,
you need to go to bed. No. Yeah,
no. It's not. It's not my schedule that's the problem. But the list is
it's too
very
huge,
long.
right?
It's
and
very
it gets
very long.
bigger. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not even, just as a tangent, with perks, I welcome any change. Like, let's see what happens.
I would rather change that backfires a little, that is a bit adventurous,
Yes.
than nothing. But
100%
please
agree.
don't make a perk that's stupid and then don't listen to feedback for 6 months. Because I can go 6 months in the past, you know,
Yeah.
and be like, okay, we already called that this was going to be a problem.
Mhm.
You know, and if they asked us before, we would have told them before.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels really bad that you see a problem, you identify a problem, you point it out, it comes anyway, it stays 6 months, and then the devs have to be like, hey guys, we've listened to the feedback. It's like, come on, dude, come on. No, we didn't need to go through this.
Mhm.
Like, we could have avoided this.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Well, this is like the second time that a meta has come out that has made this kind of reaction, right? Because for me, Circle of Healing coming out first, I almost quit the game for 6 months.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't play, like I couldn't like make people understand how bad that was, especially people who only played Survivor. Like was miserable. And now the way they're feeling about this, like kind of like the gen kicking build, it's the same way I felt when I was playing with Circle of Healing. You know what I mean? It was just
this Circle of
brutal.
Healing is a cocktail of annoying things.
Annoying. And it's still bad. It's still annoying.
But here, okay. First annoying thing about it. It has been nerfed 3 times. At least.
Yeah.
3 times.
How was it
In the
nerfed?
PTB, it had a longer distance and it stacked. So you
Yes.
could have a survivor heal faster than you can blink. Okay,
Almost,
that was
yeah.
stupid. So they removed that. On release, it was 100 healing speed, double. That was insane. And it's stacked with medkits, as far as I remember. Insane.
Yeah.
They nerfed it to 75. Guess what? Still too strong. They nerfed it to 50%, which is what we have now. Guess what? Still arguably too strong.
I 100% agree. I think
and
Circle of Healing changed the game forever in this game.
And some people have this thing, right? Where it's like, oh, but it's been nerfed already. What else do you want? Like, guess what? The nurse has been nerfed 25 billion times. And she's still busted. Do you want to play against a nurse every time? Do you want other killers to be removed? Do you want every killer to be like nurse? No. Like, if something is changed 3 times or 2 or 5 or 10, it still needs to be changed if it's still a problem.
100%.
Right? So the thing about Circle of Healing is, if you go to a boon and you go there and you find that there's no Circle of Healing, you're pissed at the guy that run it.
Yeah.
That already tells you everything about boons and Circle of Healing. Like,
that's why I only run Dark Theory when I play Survivor. I think it's funny.
Yeah.
I was playing with Shot. We had 4 Dark Theories, and that's it. We just and the killer kept snuffing them, and we're like, my guy. But yeah, it's
but it's true.
I agree with the Circle of Healing changed the game, and I liked boons as a concept. Like when they teased that a survivor,
most people would agree, right?
Yeah. But it's one person bringing one perk that everyone shares is terrifying. So but I don't think they'll ever really revisit. I think we have years before they revisit Circle of Healing.
Yeah,
so.
I wouldn't be surprised. And I'm gonna point out another thing about it that's really annoying compared to other boons. You don't need to be in the boon as a killer for the boon to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
With Dark Theory, if the killer is not there chasing you, 2% means nothing.
Yeah.
With Exponential, If the killer is not there to pick you up and the killer is far away, you can get picked up by someone else. For the most part, nothing. With Shadow Step, okay, your auto is hidden from, say, Barbecue, but for the most part, nothing. But Circle of Healing, it doesn't matter if the killer doesn't step on it. It can be a hub of healthy self-heals, of team going back and resetting each other. So it's a really difficult perk to balance.
Right.
And and the thing that I just cannot understand for the love of me, it stacks with medkits.
Yeah, I don't understand that either.
Solidarity doesn't work with medkits. Autodidact doesn't work
Yeah, I
with
forgot
medkits.
about that. Yeah. Oh.
Because a behavior thought, oh, that's too risky. Oof, no, that's
Yeah, solidarity's too strong.
It could be a bit too much. But boons, yay! Heal yourself in 7 seconds. Many times as your charges allow it. That's insane. And
then it's the
thing is,
argument of like, just go snuff it, and I hate that argument so
I
much.
can't find it to
Stop
snuff it.
telling me to snuff it. Depending on the map, it's impossible. Even if I do go and snuff it, it's back by the time I leave.
Yeah.
I cannot stand that argument to snuff a boon, dude.
and
I
anytime
cannot.
anytime you snuff a boon, it's safe to say you're not gonna down a survivor in the next 2 seconds.
No.
And every survivor, even if they're clueless, they look at the map, they see the blue icon disappear, they see the blue outer disappear, so now they know you're there.
100%.
So basically, waste your time, which is your most precious resource, tell everyone where you are, information, another precious resource, and then hope that they don't do it again. Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely insane. But I'm a broken record when it comes to this.
And I walk over to go stuff it, and I'm like, okay, let's get rid of this circle of healing. And as I stepped on there, I hear like right behind me. I was like, fuck it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And you know why the perk is never gonna get changed? Because the devs look at the stats.
Yeah,
and there are 2 things about this perk that are extremely irritating, and when you think about it, you're gonna hate it even more.
Nobody runs it.
Okay, it's the 4th most used perk according to Nightlight GG, which is not all the player base. It's more like NA player base at decently high level, but still, it's the 4th most perk used, and it's a team perk that everyone benefits from. Are you kidding me? Windows of Opportunity number 2 is for you. Adrenaline number 3 is for you. Dead Heart is for you. But Circle of Healing is for everyone. So if a perk that is a team perk is the 4th most used perk, you could multiply it by 4 or by 3 or by 2. And then you would realize that it's actually the most used perk because everyone in the team uses it. It is arguably the most used perk. And the devs will never look at it and be like, oh, it's the most used perk. No, it's always going to be 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. So that's never going to trigger a red flag if they don't think it through. And we have to hope that they do.
Sure.
And number 2, and I'm sure you guys will agree with this too, many survivors, especially at lower levels, absolutely misuse the perk.
Oh, yeah.
Which probably results, it's like old Object of Obsession. If you played against a survivor that knew how to use it, insufferable. If you played against a cute little baby survivor that hid in a corner and revealed themselves, horrible perk.
Yeah.
So the devs said back then, Object of Obsession is not a terribly effective perk. And they took a lot of flack for that. And if they one day tell me, or the community, Circle of Healing is not a terribly effective perk because half the people using it use it bad and waste time going for totems when the killer is camping or tunneling, and then they waste time and then they die. Like, what is that any consolation to you?
Right.
No. If in your games this perk is busted and strong and frustrating and horrible, but the devs tell you, well, yeah, but new players, they kind of die using it and they waste time looking for totems and they're a bit clueless, poor little guys. Like, it's still awful. So this perk, I agree with you. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes untouched for years and years and years just because the devs look primarily at numbers instead of at what the perk actually does and what those numbers mean and putting the numbers in context. So hard agree, and my blood is boiling.
Blood is boiling. Okay, just make your blood boil a little bit more because you touched on this, and just want to go on this before we end here. Dead Hard. There's been a lot of debate recently, mostly about how Dead Hard is incredibly unfair to burst. It's essentially giving survivors a 3rd health state. I want you to elaborate a little bit on like your tweet about it and like what are your thoughts, how it could change, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, just wait it out, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta give the people what they want.
I am a little guilty of making a tweet that didn't have a big disclaimer. It did have a disclaimer, but obviously people didn't listen to that. But it should have had a bigger disclaimer. It should have been a white text for a few seconds saying Please don't take it super seriously. I'm not making a huge point.
Sure.
But yeah, no. Throughout my time of DBD, right? Like we all play against survivors of different calibers, of different, skill levels and so on. The most I had waited up until now was like a 5 or 6 second for a dead hard, where it's like, I'm gonna lose this game. I cannot afford to have a chase go for 20 seconds. I need this down now. So I'm gonna wait it out. So now, like out of just pure curiosity, if I know someone will have dead hard, I'm just gonna wait to see how long they go. And there was one time when this absolutely menace to society ace held it for 9 seconds. And I thought, okay, that's it. I quit. I installed. That's it. 9 seconds. What is happening? Is God even real? And it's a joke. Obviously, I did not install. I wasn't mad. In fact, I won that game handily, as some people pointed out. Sure, it's not that I'm mad because I'm losing. I'm mad because I'm bad. I'm just mad because it makes no sense. And I do have a bit of a thing to share with you guys if you guys want to see it.
Yeah.
Go.
All right. Give me 2 seconds to set it all together. So I'm gonna walk you through this.
Okay. I'm here for it.
Yeah, sorry. Let me go like this. Ready. So do you guys know what this is? This is an old screenshot. You guys see it well?
The hatch
Let's
game.
go.
It's the hatch standoff. So this was a thing that was in old DBD where the survivor could go through the hatch. The killer could not close the hatch, but the killer could grab you if you went through the hatch. So if you found yourself in this situation, especially as a survivor, you had no right play. If you went in, you got caught. If you didn't go in, nothing happened. Forever. There's some people that were very stubborn would do this for hours and hours and hours out of pride. So this was a situation that was basically down to you trying to guess when the other person was asleep and trying to time it well. And even then it could backfire and you could get grabbed, and it was very frustrating. Needless to say, this was removed because it was unfun and everyone was happier for it. Next up, multiple people escaping through hatch with a key. Right now, hatch only appears for one person, right? And if you use a key, you leave, but it's only one person. Back in the day, it wasn't like that. The hatch spawned at certain times, depending on gens left. So as you can see in the screenshot, one person has escaped, another one is about to escape, and then the third one and maybe fourth one is going to join. If you found yourself in this situation as the killer, this was awful. You could have one gen left and have to defend 3 gens, but also have to look for the hatch and also keep an eye on the guy with the key. And you could have Franklins, but they could drop the key. So this was a very unfun situation where you couldn't really win. You could try to time, you could try to guess, you could try to do whatever you did, but whatever you did, you could guess and you could still guess wrong and lose 3 people through the hatch. It was not very fun. It got removed. And obviously, I don't need to say that this was frustrating to go against.
Oh, yeah.
This was the old Trapper, which many people forget even is a thing. With the old Trapper, instead of having a fixed amount of escapes that you could do at max, it was always a 1 in 4 by default. Forever. Now, for most people, that meant that they got out in 1, 2, 3, 4 attempts, but not always. I remember very vividly, I played a game where a Quentin stepped on a trap across the map, and I was like, I can't go for him. I'm going to leave him. I'm going to focus on these 3 guys that I have here. He stayed there for 1.5 minutes trying to get off. 1.5 minutes. Now he tried his best to time it to get lucky, but he got very unlucky, and that could have gone on forever. So he DC'd. There's also another bug that has something to do with this that was even more frustrating, but I'll just skip it for the sake of brevity. This got removed. Now, at most, you will escape in a few attempts. Prayer Beat Braceless Spirit. Oh, classic. This was an add-on for Spirit that allowed her to phase across the map completely silently. And if you played against a Spirit like this, there's nothing you could do other than be in perfect comms with your team that would make you safe. If you were on a gen and she had, say, surveillance or discordance or whatever, she knew you were there and you had no warning pretty much, and you would just get grabbed out of it. Also, spirits that run this build, being the evil villains that they were, they also run Hunt the Ground, Devour Whole, Thrill the Hunt, which warned them when you were in a totem back in the day. So basically, if you did the totem, you would die. If you did gens, you would die. Only thing you could do is just pray. So you were on a gen or you were doing a totem, and you had to time it randomly. You didn't really know, right? The skill was like, well, I hope she's not coming, right? Or I hope things. So you had to time it. But even if you did your best, you could still get grabbed. roll in old, ruin, and dying.
I miss it.
Ruin used to be a really strong perk that made gens regress on their own very, very aggressively, and people wanted to get rid of it. If you didn't get rid of it, I mean, that was fine, but anytime you let go of a gen, you would see it bleed out in seconds. It was very, very brutal. And a new perk came out at one point called Undying, and this perk eventually got nerfed. But before it got nerfed, it did something really funny. If you did Ruin, it replaced it elsewhere. It was literally your Mario, your Ruin is in another castle. It literally just moved it away.
Yeah.
So you had to do Undying. But if you got unlucky, you might have done Ruin, then Undying, and then you still had Ruin. So someone on Reddit mapped out all the possible outcomes.
Hold on, I gotta blow this up. Okay, go for it.
So yeah, you had a 12% chance to do 5 totems to get rid of 1 perk. And hold up, the killer, every time you were on a totem, could see your aura. Now, do I need to explain that this is absolutely insane? Probably not, if you just look at the numbers, right?
Mhm.
So you basically had to do a totem, hope that it was the right one, hope that you could call out to other people if it wasn't, do the next one, hope that it was the right one, and even then, you could still be unlucky and have to do 4 or 5 totems. On average, you do about 3 totems to get rid of Ruin. But it could be more. It was arbitrary. It was hoping to God that it worked, and even then, it could not.
Yeah.
Face camping. Unfortunately, some killers can still face camp with their powers. We discussed that today.
Yep.
But even if a killer has no power and they're just looking at a hook like this, unless some conditions are met, this is a massive gamble. If you go for the unhook here and the killer presses M1 at the correct time, you will be grabbed, even if healthy. And it's this really, really stupid game where you have to unhook and the killer will wait and he'll try to hit you. But it's about connection, and you could let go. And if the killer has McDonald's Wi-Fi, they will still grab you. And it's very annoying, and almost everyone hates it. And I personally despise it. Luckily for survivors, I guess this is avoidable if you bring 2 people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most people would understand and say that, okay, this is bad. It's not good. That whether or not I get grabbed, it's not down to skill, timing, or whatever. It's just down to connection and luck and prediction of random things. And by the way, the killer could go AFK. You could be trying to unhook, and the killer maybe went AFK, and you're just doing that for yourself. You know, so that's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But at least that one you can avoid if you're maybe a bit coordinated.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing you can't avoid is skill checks. Right now, if you leave a generator, I've calculated with my friends after doing a few hundred attempts, you have a roughly 7% chance to get a skill check that is unavoidable. How amazing does it feel to have a gen that's, let's say, 90% and you leave it because you have to, and now the gen is at 80, and then your teammate leaves it and it's now at 70?
I didn't know it was that high.
Yeah,
That's
it's a 10%.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That's like 7% is not insane, don't get me wrong, but it's
No,
one of those
it's
things
higher
that
than I thought it would
it's
be.
one of those things that people say, oh, this perk's not that crazy, it's not that often, it's just 1 in a million. Yeah, okay, well, okay, good. Do we still like this though? I personally think it's atrocious. I think it's awful. And in fact, it punishes survivors for doing what survivors are expected to do, which is to go do cool things other than sit on gens, right? Killers hate that survivors sit on gens, but yet many of them don't complain about this because it benefits them, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So the only way you can avoid this is if one of them has corrective action, or if you wait until you get a skill check and then leave immediately after. Then it's safe. But again, you could wait forever. You're like, okay, wait 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8 seconds, and you don't get a skill check. So what do? Do you leave? Do you just stay? I think that's really unfun.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm getting at. With Death
Yeah,
Heart,
no, I get it.
right now, we are in a very similar situation. This perk can be used in many ways that I think is completely fine. Obviously, it's an exhaustion perk that's meant to create distance. It would be kind of weird if it never did anything. You know, some people are like, oh, so you just want Death Heart to be nothing. No, okay, I get it. Like, sure. But I think there's a situation, right? Like skill checks, like we just talked about, they're not always bad. They're part of the game, right? I don't want skill checks removed. And I don't think Death Heart should be removed or even reworked at this point. Honestly, keep it, whatever.
Yeah.
But there are some situations like when a killer gets to you in the middle of nowhere, and then they have to wait, and then they have to wait, and then they have to wait. And it's much like the grab game. It's much like the hatch standoff. It's just a guessing game. Now, some survivors, because every now and then they get lucky, they like this. They're like, wow, it's great. I held it for 5.5 seconds. I pressed it and I got away. And it's like, wow, amazing. Super fun. And I think that's BS. So I have some changes to keep the perk mostly the same. Maybe even make it a little bit better in some situations, but reduce this complete random BS of, if you guess the dead hard timing, well, it does something.
Right.
And it's the following. Let's talk about them. So the first one is a buff. Dead hard would still work if you're in deep wound. We talked about tunneling a lot today, and as you all know, we didn't really talk about this, but how nice is it that the most common survivor exhaustion perk does absolutely nothing if you tunnel? That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, this would make the dead hard still work. If you hit a dead hard while I'll zoom in a bit. If you hit a dead hard while a survivor is deep wounded, the killer has a shorter cooldown. The survivor doesn't get a speed boost, but he dodges going down. And if it's a killer with say the best for last or anything like that, it doesn't apply. It counts as a miss. So that would be a buff to make dead hard a bit more consistent against say lesion, and a bit more relevant against say tunneling, which is fairly common.
Yeah.
But for this positive change, a few negative or additional ones. Number one, dead hard gives an indicator when procced on the killer. I'm sure most of you, I'm sure the two of you obviously know that if you get hit by head on, you see a perk indicator that says head on, stun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This might seem small, but you have no idea how confusing it is for a new player to have no clue what just happened. If you hit a survivor and they don't go down, do you know how many things that could be? It could be a styptic, it could be dead hard, it could be off the record. And many people have shown me clips. Oh, look, automatic dead hard. No, it's off the record. It could be
metal.
Man.
It's probably not.
Yeah. It could be soul guard, right?
Yeah.
And it's super hard to see it. So an indicator so that the killer knows at least what hit them. And it also wouldn't be terrible if a dead hard made a sound like every other perk. If you fall from height and you make a sound and that sound goes away, and you have balanced landing, you can use sound to tell when a perk is there, right? It wouldn't be terrible if doing a dead hard had maybe a better looking animation and it made some sound so that, people can put two and two together, especially beginners. This would do nothing for killers like us with 1 million hours, just for beginners.
Yeah.
Because deep wound would allow dead hard to be used, because deep wound no longer would prevent dead hard from usage, that would mean that dead hard technically could be used twice in chase. So, if you want to make it fair, maybe make the duration longer. This is completely optional. And the more important part that I think is the one that I think is most problematic about dead hard. If the killer is within, let's say, 1 meter of you for 2.5 seconds, it deactivates. And it activates again immediately when you leave that distance. That means that if the killer gets close to you during an unhook, you still probably have time to dead hard. If the killer sniffs your butt for a few seconds, you might be able to do a dead hard last second if you're close to safety to try to bait it. But you can no longer get close to the killer, stay within range for 5 seconds, and now it's a guess game of when you're going to press E, even if you don't have it. Because that's the sad part. Like, that's the really, really sad part. And I think I have a video maybe to show you if you want to. But like, I don't know. Like, I'm sure some of you have been chased for like 5 seconds and the killer waits. You don't have that hard.
Yeah.
And they just
No,
wait.
yeah, for sure.
He's just
I think that's a bit insane about this perk.
Yeah.
I
I fall on both sides because I watched Scott's video about the sort of mind game that Dead Hard creates of the potential back and forth and maybe and like the mind game of like just instantly swing now instead of like that gamble. I see, like, for me, most 99% of people that use Dead Hard are bad, and like I'm bad with it. It just and ping is a problem too, right? So
sure.
So I don't consider Dead Hard to be a problem, but there is the few times where you are playing that waiting game until they get to the pallet and they do get the perfect Dead Hard through the pallet, and there you either could have swing and procced it or they get the stun, but either way you're kind of in a lose-lose. Versus the idea of I like that there's a right way to use it almost.
Yeah, right. I do feel that's all right. Yeah. Sometimes if I'm super confident, I'm like, I'm in your head. I know you have Dead Hard. Like, yeah. Most of the times, even at pallets, you can still hit them because they do it early. Some insanely good survivors have an incredible amount of like experience. They have like an insane timing and they pull it up more often than not. Yeah. Good for them. Like, I don't think that needs to be taken away.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think that's a problem. The problem with Dead Hard, it's kind of stupid that a perk goes away when you play against a certain killer. Why? Why does it need to be this way?
Yeah.
Oh, does it need to be this way? I don't know, man.
That's what
Like,
I was gonna bring up. I'm a deathslinger main. Dead Hard is like non-existent for me. Maybe sometimes when I go to swing earlier, they run at me and I instinctively
Yeah.
swing. That's when it procs on me. But I never
Right.
had these 50-50 moments because if someone's holding out, I know you have Dead Hard. I just
Right.
point my gun and shoot.
Right.
But I do
Mhm.
agree that that probably shouldn't be the case. I don't think that's very fair.
Well, I mean, for his gun, I mean, what are we gonna do? Obviously,
Mhm.
that's fine. But maybe for a hit that is not with the out of the gun,
Yeah.
maybe that's fair. You know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I don't think that would be a problem if you go buff a little bit to cover those things. Make the perk more consistent. Just don't make it terrible in one situation and have unusual strengths in other for no reason, right?
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, like I'm okay with the perk being the way it is mostly. My problem, I think, lies with the fact that I don't like random mind games that have to do with nothing. Like I remember watching the video that you mentioned about Scott, where
Mhm.
Scott goes to a survivor that's running to the gate, and he hits him immediately, and he's like, "Well, he expected me to wait out his death heart, so I just didn't do it." Well, what if you forgot? So you're telling me that if I forget that death heart is there, it's better, you
Yeah.
know? And many people will tell me, "Oh, just don't wait it out. Just hit them half a second after." I have so many clips of me doing that and eating them. So what is the play? What is it?
Yeah.
The play, and some people can admit it, is to be lucky. To some degree, be lucky.
is.
And people make the argument, it's like, oh, but it's a luck that most of the time goes your way, or most survivors don't use it very well. But why? Why don't I don't tell survivors, well, you losing 10% of a skill check is very unlucky. Like it doesn't happen most of the time. And like that would be
Right.
shitty. I think that would
Yeah.
be terrible.
Yeah.
Like, well, yeah, you both of you let go of a gen to go rescue your teammate, and you lost 20% of the gen. But it's very unlucky. It's like a 1 in 10. It's like a 1 in 20. What's the big deal? That's awful. That's terrible. Like it's not a good argument to say, oh, it's just rare.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
that's my change that I should suggest, and I think it more or less keeps the perk the way it is. But yeah, some other people, you know, to say that they disagree would be an understatement. Some people like they just hate the perk, or they wanted to go back the way it was. Like I don't know, man. Like it's a bit weird.
There's enough things you can do as killer to. I mean, I've gotten. I feel like I did this before Dead Hard was nerfed, and then once it was nerfed, I didn't care. But I'm getting into that. You look up really fast, or if you have an ability, you just tap
and
the
when
ability.
it works, it feels great.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
But what happens when you do it and they've seen it a million times and they keep doing what's the correct play?
Yeah, exactly.
And some people are, because they play one side more than the other, they're like, oh, just swing, just take it.
Yeah.
Just accept that you have a 10% chance to down the person, or have to wait 30 seconds. Well, wanna go back and talk about another perk that makes you get your objective done or have to wait 30 seconds? Like
Yeah, true.
very
Very true.
suddenly once it's some people, obviously, not everyone, but some people are very okay with one of those things, they're not very okay with the other.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mhm.
Just do the gen, just work on that 99 gen, just don't let go, don't do anything, just hope that it's not eruption, just hope that it's not that hard. I don't know, I feel like that's like very not very ambitious at all, not very like, oh, we could make the game better, oh, we could make this a bit more fair for both sides, we could make, no, it's just I just accept it.
Very status quo. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. We have you for just a few more minutes because you said you only had about 2 hours here. I did want to just briefly touch on you as a creator, because we know you through the lens of DBD, perks and balance, and the anecdotes about your many flavorful jobs in the past, and
Okay.
but you are, whether you like it or not, a pillar of the community, a pillar that is either railed against or praised without your consent. We have talked about tunneling, we've talked about eruption, we've talked about Dead Hard, and these things, anytime you tweet about them, anytime you make a video, it is a feeding frenzy of opinions that are misconstrued. And how I don't know that I would be able to, but how do you continue to find your drive and your passion to continue to help players that not necessarily intentionally either attempt to cannibalize you or put you on a pillar and sort of they sort of purport that you say things that you didn't say, or you're either an angel or a devil. And how do you continue making content knowing that you will be misunderstood to extreme degrees?
I don't know. I feel like comments in general, as a content creator, they really hurt when they attack something that you're insecure about, right?
Sure.
If I ask you, if I were to accuse you of being a supporter of, I don't know, of something very stupid that 100% you don't support,
Yeah.
let's just say I accuse you of being a propaganda speaker of North Korea. Like, that's so outrageous.
Yeah.
It wouldn't even face you.
Yeah.
But if I tell you that, oh, you just speak to this and it rings a little bit true and you're a bit insecure about that, and you're like, oh, am I? Like, that suddenly hurts.
Yeah.
So sometimes the comments that I receive are just, they miss the mark by so much, and they happen no matter what I say, that then I understand, okay, it's not about what I said.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even about me. It's just about the feelings of that person or the feelings of the community.
Mm-hmm.
If you go out one day and you say A is good, and then the next day you say A is bad and B is good, and the response is always, oh, you're terrible, you're a terrible person. Like, again, it's not about what you're saying. It's just people projecting their frustration,
Mm-hmm.
and this is understandable to some degree, personifying their frustration in like making a voodoo doll out of you, like making everything bad about you. Because it's very hard to be upset at devs that don't talk to you. It's very hard to be mad at a game that doesn't have a physical appearance. It's very difficult to be mad at the millions of players that you played with, but it's very easy to be upset at a content creator that says something that you disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
I can do that too. I can look and be like, this guy's dumb. That's dumb. That's really stupid.
Yeah.
And this is why the community, blah, 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 blah. It's very easy to do that. So I don't hold it against them a lot. Most of the people that engage in conversation with me, they'll find that I'm pretty reasonable, and I will almost understand where someone's coming from. I try, at least,
Yeah.
So I know that, it's just a barrier of communication, and it's much easier to dismiss and feel good about yourself than it is to be like, what do he mean by this? Or is this really true? Or I don't agree, but okay, what exactly do we disagree on?
Mm-hmm.
So that's okay. That's all right. And and if it's the worst that comes from being part of a community that otherwise treats me like an absolute, like they like I am absolutely spoiled by my community and the community at large. If that's the worst thing that comes from it, I am extremely privileged and no complaints from me.
Well, that's very nice. I like that. Well, Dro, did you have any final questions?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that was a good.
We covered a lot. We talked a lot. I just want to thank Otz for being here. It's like really awesome to get to sit and just chat
mind
with
you, the only reason I can't be on for longer is because it's 3 a.m. here, but it's lovely. I wouldn't mind, like, if you guys want to go the 6-hour route, I'm down.
I would love to.
It's my style.
Take a Saturday off.
It's a privilege of mine to be here, and I thank you for being here. And Dylan, you're smelly, so
I do my best. Otz, is there anything you want to plug right now specifically that you want to point people to? This should be out within the next 24 hours. I know you've done some fundraising.
Community member Choi, who's a YouTuber who's made a lot of content about DVD guides, covering news. They announced on Twitter that they have blood cancer. Yes. It would be lovely if you find their content, leave a supportive comment. I think if one thing this community has done right, and we can agree, all of us 100%, is having each other's backs when it comes to things like this. I can think of poppers, it makes me feel immensely lucky to think that if anything bad were to happen to anyone or to me, it makes me feel super lucky to know that people never split about that. People are one when it comes to this thing. So if you guys go show your support, that would be lovely. And
perfect.
That's it.
Yeah, we can do that. Well, thank you, Otz, for being here. This is for anybody who is this is your first time listening. This is I'm All Ears. We've been here for 2 years. I think it feels like it's just kind of been forever. We're on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. Typically, it is a 2-man show. We were very blessed today, and we will be continuing to cover the impending PTB and things coming up. Be sure that you check out Otz and be sure that you are kind to your fellow players if you can be. Otherwise, we will be praying to the entity. We will see you guys on the next episode.